The New Yam Festival, normally called Iriji or Iwaji, is an annual festival by the Igbo people of southeast Nigeria, held at the end of every rainy season. Traditionally, the eating of the first yam is performed by the Igwe.
Iwaju means the people have planted and there is plenty of harvest, successful harvest. So it's celebrated in our custom.
For the Igbo man, Iwaji Festival is always a time of reunion and recognition of worthy sons and daughters, while masquerades and dance groups add to the entertainment of the day.
Gas pipelines are the arteries for powering electricity. When the artery is burst, then the entire system collapses. Vandalizing gas pipelines is a criminal offense against the Nigerian people. Let us join hands and protect our gas pipelines from the enemies of Nigeria. Report any suspected vandals to the security operatives. Let us stop vandals before they destroy our collective national heritage, so we can have the Nigeria of our dreams, where there will be light at all times. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. Visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng.
NTA International News.
President Muhammadu Buhari restates commitment to recover Nigeria's looted funds. Strengthening economic ties, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo on a one-day working visit to Zambia. Kogi and Bayelsa States governorship elections, INEC promises Nigerians to deliver credible polls. Hello, it's my pleasure to welcome you to NTA International News this hour. I'm Nancy Godi Angonihu. We begin with foreign relations, restoring Nigeria's economy. President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration is intensifying efforts towards recovering looted Nigerian funds. This, he said, the government is doing by identifying banks, financial institutions and countries in which payment of stolen Nigerian crude oil have been deposited. Speaking at an audience with visiting United States congressmen, President Buhari acknowledged the support and cooperation his government was getting from the international community in gathering required intelligence for tracing and recovering stolen national resources. We'll bring you details of this report in the course of this bulletin. And more on bilateral ties. Nigeria's Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is in Zambia on a one-day official working visit. Professor Osinbajo will have bilateral talks with Zambian President Edgar Chagwa Lungu and his Vice President Inonge Wina. Professor Osinbajo will Tuesday be participating in the commissioning of the 1.5 million tons Dangote cement plant and 30 megawatts coal-fired power plant in Ndola, Zambia. The Vice President is expected back in the country later on Tuesday. In another development, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has described former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, as a detribalized man of tremendous courage, worthy of emulation by all. The Vice President stated this at a reception in honor of Amechi put together by his friends. State House correspondent Aliu Kabir reports that the wife of the president, Mrs. Aisha Buhari, was mother of the day at the occasion.
Describing Chibuike Rotimi Amechi as an exemplary leader, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, noted that the victory of the governing All Progressives Congress in Nigeria wouldn't have been possible without the input of Amechi. The Vice President added that his contribution to the development of Rivers State in particular and Nigeria as a whole is very significant.
The one thing that I personally admire about him is his forthrightness, is his ability to be able to just say it like it is, and you never left in doubt about where he stands on any issue at all.
While describing him as a man of honor and integrity, the wife of the president acknowledged the contribution of Rotimi Amechi towards women participation in governance and politics.
We really appreciate him. In the recent years, according to what we have seen and what we have heard so far, politically he is the most courageous man in the South. It's high time for us to celebrate Rotimi Amechi.
Our former Speaker, Rivers State House of Assembly, and two-term governor of the state, as well as the Director General Buhari Osinbajo Presidential Campaign Organization 2015, were some of the positions held by the celebrant. He was described by many as unbiased and considerate, who believed in the unity and development of Nigeria.
You brought passion into the APC. You brought energy into the APC. You were very, very aware of the risks of failure.
I think Governor Amechi deserves the celebration that we are all gathered tonight to do.
Mr. Amechi is optimistic that with all honesty, hard work and commitment of all Nigerians towards nation building, the desired change is possible.
I choose the path of honesty and truth. You cannot catch me. You cannot catch me being dishonest.
He promised not to disappoint Nigerians. From the International Conference Center, Abuja, Aliu Kabir, NTA News.
The House of Representatives and the Republic of South Korea have agreed on strengthening their bilateral relations through parliamentary interactions. This was part of the decisions reached at a meeting between Deputy Speaker Yusuf Hassan and the South Korean ambassador to Nigeria, Noh Kyu-dok. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Onkwo reports.
Several literatures have noted with emphasis the big difference between Nigeria and South Korea in the area of development. In the 1950s, Nigeria and South Korea were on the same level of development, but today, the Asian country has left Nigeria behind. This concern was the take-off point of this meeting as Deputy Speaker called on the South Korean government to enhance transfer of technology into Nigeria by way of establishing industries in the country.
As a nation, we have been trying hard in the last 50 years to try and find solution to why South Korea, India, Malaysia, Brazil left us behind. We want South Korea to come and see a way of helping in a manner that our trained, professionals will be able to apply that training within the Nigerian space.
The South Korean ambassador to Nigeria, No Kyo-dok, acknowledging Nigeria's abundant human and material resources, said his country has invested in Nigeria's economy and will strive to expand its projects in the country, especially in the areas of education, industrialization, and parliamentary relations.
Recently, I've been to Kogi State, and we commissioned a vocational education center, vocational training center there.
The Korean ambassador congratulated Nigeria for the peaceful and transparent conduct of the 2015 general elections from the National Assembly. Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
Moving on to electoral matters, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has reassured Nigerians that it will not be weighed down by the lack of funds required to successfully conduct conclusive governorship elections in Kogi and Bayelsa states later this year. Deputy Director, Public Affairs, INEC, Nick Dazang, who stated this while briefing journalists in Abuja, said, while the card reader and permanent voter card proved to be the game changer in the last elections, the Commission intends to canvass further reforms that will enhance transparency for future elections. Ifanyo Kafo reports.
INEC's newly reconstituted standing committees have been meeting as budgets are being prepared for their activities on the elections. The Deputy Director says the Commission would interface with the Executive and Legislature to remove inhibitions to electronic and diaspora voting, as well as sections of the Electoral Act which are in conflict.
One of the sections says INEC, in concert with its functions, should oversee the activities of the political parties and make sure that they conform with internal democracy. Another section says that the Commission has no option than to accept any candidate forwarded to it, by the political parties. I foresee a situation again where the Commission will canvass for diaspora voting to be allowed, especially when you consider that there are millions of Nigerians out there who are resident outside the country who would like to exercise their franchise.
Nick Dazang, who at the event was presented with the Centenary Leadership Award 2015 by the Association of Northern Nigerian Students, says the Commission is determined to play its required role and will deploy sufficient resources to successfully conduct the Kogi and Bayelsa elections. In Abuja, Ifeanyi Okafor,
The Inspector General of Police, Mr. Solomon Arase, has ordered a stop to the trend where the police arrest and keep suspects in detention while investigating a crime. He announced this at the opening of a two-day workshop for the Nigeria Police on effective implementation of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act and the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. Femi Okewo has more.
Addressing officers and men of the FCT Police Command, the Inspector General of Police, Solomon Arase, said issues of welfare, improved policing through training and retraining will continue to be given top priority during his stewardship. He called on the officers to up their game in the areas of crime prevention, community partnership, intelligence, and civil conduct, pointing out that the force cannot afford to continue to shortchange the citizenry.
You must obey all traffic rules. That you are a policeman does not give you immunity. Abuja is a cosmopolitan city. All the who is in Nigeria, they reside here. So if there is any crime in any particular place of Abuja, it raises an alarm, that there is insecurity.
City Police Commissioner Wilson Inalego, in his remarks, said the command has since keyed into the new policy thrust of the IG. He said high-yielding results have been achieved.
Adopted. So working closely with relevant vigilante groups and developing sources within these vigilante groups has been critical to some of the successes we have recorded.
The interaction, which also served as a morale booster to the FCT Police Command, highlighted strategic areas that required attention of the police boss, to which he promised to address as soon as possible. The Inspector General of Police used the occasion to present to the public the FCT Police emergency numbers for distress calls. From the FCT Police Command in Abuja, I am Abdullahi Ajia, NTA News.
In a move to ensure that institutions of higher learning in Nigeria collectively put academic integrity in the spotlight, series of capacity-building sessions are being organized by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offense Commission, ICPC, in Abuja. Coordinated by ICPC's Anti-Corruption Academy of Nigeria, ACAN, the workshop centers on academic and procurement integrity for polytechnics and monotechnics. Ominioden has the report.
The Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission says corruption in the nation's tertiary institutions strikes the heart of the future of educational development. The commission reaffirmed its vision of ensuring that corruption does not hamper development in academics.
Meant to add value to the chain of integrity, transparency, and accountability.
Conversations at the various sessions centered on elevating integrity in admissions and enrollment, as well as on research and publication. Appointment, promotion, discipline, examination and records was also the front burner. Targeted at the leadership of polytechnics and monotechnics, the overall projection by ICPC is, beyond corrupt practices, the image and confidence of Nigerians and the international community on the quality of graduates, programs and general administration in the institutions will be assured.
Academic integrity is a long-term process in terms of getting people to appreciate the need to do what is right within the system.
We should be able to go out to the comfort zone of the institutions.
The Registrar of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, Professor Dibu Ojerinde, while speaking on integrity in admission and enrollment processes in polytechnics and monotechnics, appeals to rectors, registrars, deans of academic planning that they should adhere to approved guidelines on admissions and enrollment. The concern, however, by the organizers is how to streamline a flow-up mechanism to ensure compliance. In Abuja, Ominiodan, NTA News.
Still on raising educational standards, 10 Nigerian universities under the Africa Centers of Excellence have received 1.7 billion naira as first installment for the implementation of projects. Franca Uzomolua reports that beneficiaries of the project attended a workshop in Abuja. With the disbursement of more than $70 million to each participating university, the institutions are expected to commence the implementation of the project, but additional funds will depend on their ability to meet up with certain conditions. These include the number of national and regional students they enroll in new specialized short-term courses, master's and PhD programs. Other criteria are the number of internationally accredited education programs and the ability of the institution to generate external revenue in terms of training and research quality.
Within the span of six weeks or 3 months, we developed 2 rapid diagnostic tests for the board. One of them has been approved by WHO, and
the focus of the workshop is to build the capacity of participating universities in the ACE project to enable them achieve the objectives.
The ACE project has the capacity to transform the economic landscape of the sub-regions. Only if we can look inwards and come up with innovations that can address our common problems.
The ACE project was initiated by 7 African countries, including Nigeria, in 2013 with the support of the World Bank.
If you go to any education system in Nigeria, if you say what is your biggest problem, they will say more money. But what this project is saying that instead of more money, let us change the paradigm to more results.
10 Nigerian universities out of 19 African universities won the competition. In Abuja, Franca Uzoma Olua, NTA News. We now have details of our first story. President Buhari in recovery of stolen funds. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the appointment. No, President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration is intensifying efforts towards recovering looted Nigerian funds. This, he said, the government is doing by identifying banks, financial institutions and countries in which payment of stolen Nigerian crude oil have been deposited. Speaking at an audience with visiting United States congressmen, President Buhari acknowledged the support and cooperation of his administration was getting from the international community in gathering required intelligence for tracing and recovering stolen national resources. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari also explained that some monies were paid to individual accounts and efforts have been made to identify the financial institutions and the countries involved. He acknowledged the support and cooperation of the international community to his administration's efforts in gathering required intelligence for tracing and recovering stolen national resources. The president said assurances of sympathy have already been given by the United States and other countries that the nation's cases against the corrupt elements will be treated appropriately and with dispatch. He made a case for regular meetings of the Nigeria-United States Binational Commission for the promotion of bilateral trade and economic relations. Leader of the visiting United States Congressman, Representative Darrell Issa, reassured President Buhari of his country's support in the fight against Boko Haram by providing training, intelligence, and military platforms. He said the United States will also assist Nigeria in curtailing the theft of crude oil in the Gulf of Guinea. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
President Buhari has approved the appointment of Professor Kamaru Olayiwola Usman as Provost of the Federal College of Education, Oyo. The appointment of the 51-year-old Professor Usman is for an initial term of 4 years. The old Oyo-born educationist was until his appointment the Dean of the Faculty of Education, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. This is news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria. Earlier, we told you that President Muhammadu Buhari had said that his administration is intensifying efforts towards recovering looted Nigerian funds. Still to come, Nigeria's external reserves rise by $2.27 billion, just as CBN orders banks to refund excess withdrawal charges to customers. Don't go away.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Attempts to bridge the gap between theory and practical journalism are underway in Abuja. Correspondent Anthony Forson reports that the forum is an assemblage of seasoned journalists and new entrants into the profession. The report.
For the participants, it was a rare opportunity to listen to seasoned practitioners who have carved a niche for themselves in the industry as they reel out the do's and don'ts of the profession, which in their estimation is lacking.
People just want to rush into the studio, present their news and all that. You should go into the teaching process, you write the news, edit the news, some of these elements before you even launch into the field.
The stations are coming, but to be honest, we do not have the manpower to cope with the stations that we have. So training is key.
In fact, we noticed the widening gap between the newsroom and the classroom with disgust. And I can assure you the current leadership try as much as possible to convoke this kind of workshops, seminars that will enhance the capacity of journalists in Nigeria, particularly members of the Nigeria Union of Journalists.
This initiative is to ensure that people are groomed, or people are trained, or people are, put on the field there to ensure that activities are being done as it should have been done in the industry, or as it should have been done in the field to be able to attain the results that we desire for development purposes.
Having listened to the submissions of of the resource persons. The participants said they are convinced that with the training, they will do better.
We are privileged to tap from the depth, the wealth and the depth of knowledge that the best in the industry have.
From the caliber of people I've seen here, I'm sure I'm going to have a swell time.
This is just like a platform for me to enable me grow more in journalism. It's going to help.
The training, which is under the auspices of Push Africa, will run for 8 weeks. In Abuja, Anthony Fosun, NTA News.
Money matters now. Nigeria's external reserves rise by $2.27 billion by the end of July. Banks to refund excess withdrawal charges to customers across the country as banks continue to reject dollars. Details with Muplang Dakok.
The nation's external reserves pool increased by $2.270 million, a 7.82% increase at the end of July. On a month-on-month basis, the rise was $2.262 billion, while on a year-to-date, the reserves level reduced by $3.197 billion. Deposit money banks in 30 states of the country, otherwise known as commercial banks, are due to refund monies worth millions of naira to their customers from unauthorized charges on withdrawals. The central bank gave the directive to these banks and also ordered them to stop excess charges on individual and corporate accounts henceforth or face sanctions. On the money market, as banks continue to reject foreign currencies, speculations are that the US dollar is likely to further depreciate against the naira at the parallel markets. The naira had appreciated against the dollar from 245 to 220 last week after banks began to deny their customers opportunity to make cash deposits of the dollar and other foreign currencies. The naira has lost about 15% against the dollar over the past 1 year. Muplang Dakok, NTA News.
Trials on the corruption case of the opposition freedom fighter Malema resumes in South Africa. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in Doha for talks with Gulf foreign ministers, and death toll rises as Myanmar faces flood emergency. Details with Basie Taima.
The trial is resuming in South African courts after being adjourned last September. Malema is accused of receiving $100,000 from involvement in corrupt reconstruction projects. If convicted, he would spend a maximum of 15 years in prison, pay a large fine, and lose his seat in parliament. South African analysts are saying that this gesture could be a deterrent to African politicians who think less of the people they are serving. And in Doha, John Kerry is meeting with senior officials of Arab states to reassure them of last month's nuclear deal between world powers. At the start of the GCC meeting, the Gulf Foreign Minister Khalid Mohammed enumerated a number of issues, including the ongoing conflict in Yemen and the pursuit of an independent Palestinian state. And in Southeast Asia, rescue workers in Myanmar are racing to help tens of thousands of people facing severe floods. Officials say the death toll has climbed to at least 46, while a total of 217 people have been affected by the flood in the country. Thousands of houses, farmland, bridges, and roads were affected. Basie Taima, NTA News.
And now sports. Bayelsa State called for corporate partnership in sports development as Team Southwest wins second consecutive national under-15 cricket championship title. Kene Imabadike has details on sports update.